our gaming pet peeves. So what we are doing is we're talking about our top 3 things that grind our gears when playing games, while playing games, associated with playing games. So as always, we don't check in beforehand because we do want to keep this dynamic and we don't know what each other is going to say. And we'll start adding to our list. So we'll do a top 3. You want to probably just go through one by one, yeah? Like in terms of Swinny, you go through your top 3?
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
So you want me to go first?
Yeah, why don't you open up the batting?
So what grinds my gears? So this first one is actually what.
So this is your third, yeah?
My third, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is actually the one that made me think of this segment, because it's just something that I just noticed it's really annoyed me, but it's a little thing, but it's like, it's a pet peeve, that's kind of thing. It's like, it's not a huge thing, but it just annoys you for some bizarre reason. And that is games that keep playing music when you're on the pause screen.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Pause the game and it will keep playing music, even if it's like lower volume of what is normal playing. I would pause the game, walk away, go do something. I'm like, oh man, like I hear this music in the background. When I pause a game, I want to it just pauses. All the sound pauses. I don't have to mute it myself. And weirdly, it doesn't annoy me when you've got games you can't pause at all, because it's kind of like, well, I can't pause it, so that's fine. It's more like games that I've paused. Exactly. It's games that I've paused and it keeps playing some form of music. I think the biggest little exception to that,
I'll take that away,
is there are some games that have like really iconic music on the pause screen. I think I could be wrong, but I think GoldenEye, when you pause and goes to the watch, I think that plays a little bit of its own music. There's a few exceptions where it's like fond memories with that stuff, but in general, that's my number 3. So have you got your image, or should I delay?
No, keep going. I'm just trying to get how I'm doing this right, because I just dragged that in and it took over the whole screen. I think if I do it like that, that's going to be Battletoads, because Battletoads is one of those games that does that and it's freaking annoying as hell.
Yeah,
and it's really loud, the music in that game.
My second pet peeve is games that have a manual save system, but they only give you a really small amount of save slots.
Oh, okay.
Now so let's say 10 or less. Now, there's a reason why this annoys me specifically, because RPGs, especially long RPGs, and especially ones that are known to be glitchy, you have to kind of keep a running tab of saves. And there's also times when I will save stuff because I need to go back for it, because I'm just like strategic saves. And in the older days, I understood the reason for that, like your PlayStation era, and especially SNES era and stuff. But let's say PlayStation 64 and all that, because that stuff took up a lot of memory on the memory cards and the controller packs. This day and age, if I've got the space and it doesn't break the game by having like hundreds of save slots or unlimited or whatever, don't limit me. Like, man, like, let me use that. It happens all the time with RPGs where there's like 10 or 15 save slots, and then suddenly I'm overriding ones that I was wanting to keep and stuff like that. So again, it's not a huge thing. It's the fact that they just manually save it all in multiple slots. It's great, but it's a pet peeve.
I probably am being a little bit unfair with my example here. I've put in Resident Evil's ribbon system. Like, I don't even know if you're familiar with it. It's when you would be, right? Yeah. Because that is actually part of the mechanism of the game itself, but it's the kind of thing that came to my head.
More limiting.
They're doing that on purpose, but different. I get what you're saying.
I get what you're saying. But that's what I thought about as well when you mentioned it.
So my number 3, and this one is...
Well, you're number 1, right?
Oh, sorry, yeah, number 1, you're right, counting down, is... And this one kind of moves a little above a pet peeve to like a real annoyance for me, but whatever. It's RPGs, specifically, that don't allow you to sell items in bulk or buy items in bulk as well, but selling is the biggest thing. And I kind of bundle this in with not having the ability to tag things as junk and auto sell as well, but that's something I'm not expecting every game to have, but I'm expecting every game, if you've got an inventory system where you could potentially have 20 of an item, don't make me sit there selling these things individually. Like, stack this stuff and allow you to sell it in bulk. And most games are pretty good with this, but every now and then you come across a game and you're like, what the fuck, man? Like, why? Who tested this and said, this was being an enjoyable experience to freaking sit there selling things manually all the time. So
I have a feeling it doesn't get, because I keep wondering that too. I keep wondering how something like Cyberpunk, that's gone through so much testing, so many iterations, doesn't get something like that right. And
Cyberpunk
they
is
rushed
a
it out.
horrible
They rushed it
example
out.
of this.
Oh, you reckon it's no? But I thought Swinny, when it first launched, you couldn't when you were pulling apart the weapons and all this other kind of stuff. It was none of it was automated. Not the version you played.
Well, I don't know because I only can compare.
No, so
my experience
the
with-
first one,
Yeah,
Mike, I'm correct, right? Like you had to go through individually to like sell each part and go in and out of the menu. It was like driving people absolutely insane. It was one of the first things they updated.
Well, Cyberpunk's inventory. Cyberpunk's inventory is just a whole pet peeve in itself. Like that game is a mess when it comes to its inventory. And I love the game, but its inventory is. I spoke for ages about it,
but I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that in a whole bunch of games that for some reason I think you don't expect them to have that issue, because you expect them to have learned from previous games they've made or other things, or have done some testing. And the only thing I can think of is no one really ends up playing the game like a real person plays the game, where they hoard a bunch of shit, where they collect everything that they see. And I think that's maybe why when they play test it, they don't play test that, because they don't have time to do that. So I don't know, mate. It's interesting though. It's funny how it happens so much.
They're my 3 gaming pet peeves. There were some others I considered, but that's my 3.
Cool.
All right, let's go with you next, Mike.
Cool. Okay, so I had a few, but I've narrowed it down to just 3 because I had to just have 3.
Top 3.
So
What's your third?
Top 3. So my number 3, I'm gonna bucket under the term fluff. So I'm talking about stuff like adding fetch quests and side stuff that doesn't add much to the experience. It's just a cookie cutter thing that distracts from the main game. So someone who I think I have OCD. I've never gone to a doctor to say it, but everyone I know has said that.
Let's not diagnose yourself, but
let's not self-diagnose, but I think everyone that knows me thinks that. I hate things like giant walls of shitty side quests. Thinking about something like Skyrim, where you can never really get through them. It's just added there for padding and fluff to make it look bigger. There's a bunch of games to this day, like Skyrim, that I'm just talking about, where honestly, I have no idea what the hell happens in the main story, because there's just so much side fluff that I got involved with.
I don't think that's a good example of what you're saying, to be honest.
No. Well, hang on, because I get it at the same time, and I did make a note to myself that at the same time, I get that when you're building such immersive worlds, you can't have them empty. You can't have them just not have things in there for you to do. I get that part. But if you're going to pad it out, then I think you should do something like what The Witcher did with its side quests. It's quite infamous for having side quests that are more than just go fetch 5 of these flowers or whatever. They're actually interesting, and they add to the lore. They're multifaceted. They take you from one thing to the next. There's sometimes a twist or something really funny. They've done it right. It's not fluff for the sake of just adding fluff. And I think back to the point that you also made, Swinny, and I bucket this under the idea of fluff, is inventory clutter, where, let's face it, most RPGs, you're very likely to hoard items, whether you have OCD or not. I think a lot of people just have this compulsion to want to collect things and hoard things and have things in their inventory, a lot of which you never end up using anyway. And not many games, if any, give you like simple rule systems where, for example, if something's junk, mark it as junk, automatically get rid of it, automatically sell it at a vendor when you get to it. A lot of games don't incorporate that, and you're like, why the fuck doesn't it do that? That's so weird. Or
you're really stretching this out to encompass a lot of things.
I know, I agree.
Yeah, because to me, all of this stuff comes under the bucket of fluff, where developers add content just to pad stuff out. And to me, that's the fluff. And, I could think of many different examples and many different parts of this. Assassin's Creed does that a lot with so much shit on the map where you're like, does it fucking need to really be there just to have something there so it doesn't look like it's an empty world or something? Why do you have to do it? So that's my number 3. Too much fluff. Just like my talking. Number two, I bucket.
You made my joke for me.
No worries. Number 2, I bucket under the idea of hand holding. So, I I find that some developers struggle to find the right balance between being too cryptic and giving way too much information to the player, way too many hints, way too much help, way too much hand holding. And, as an example, quest markers that tell you exactly where you need to go, like literally down to the last centimeter of the map where you should go. And I feel like it can actually not break, but if I take the Witcher 3 as an example, there's a few parts where you have to use your Witcher senses to figure out where to go next and do a little bit of detective work. And I found that a lot of the times I'll just be looking at the map because the map tells you exactly where you need to go and where you need to look for a thing, as opposed to you actually figuring it out in the game world based on your surroundings or exploring or seeing a scratch on a door or, ooh, what's that suspicious looking item on the ground? Things like that. And I think games that do that well find a really good balance between that. And I actually kind of hate, to some extent, games that hold your hand way too much. So it just ruins the immersion.
So I think there's a really good example of a game that kind of actually speaks to both these first two. Is actually Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So they actually trimmed a lot of the fluff out of that game, essentially like that the previous games had, right? Now there's still a lot of stuff and chest to collect and stuff, but they essentially trimmed a lot of the fluff and made like the side quests as these, talked about it before, but these kind of, these specific kind of events and things that happen. But the hand holding is something they started to introduce in the last few games, where you can essentially set a difficulty level. And I like games I like this idea, and I wish more games would do it, where difficulty level in terms of exploration. Okay.
Yes.
The easy mode is, hey, it's going to point out the marker for you. So it's going to hold your hand. The next one is it's going to tell you the general area. And with like the hardest difficulty, it will, based on the interactions of the quest of the people you've spoken to, it will tell you it's located at the mouth of this river, or it's located where these two rivers connect. It gives you clues to then go. You have to go to the area. And once you kind of get in the general vicinity of the area, then it'll kind of be like, okay, well, that's where it is, and you can use your. So I think that's a really
cool.
I wish more games
concept.
would do that, and I think hand holding is 100%. I agree.
The thing about that, the last one, what Assassin's Creed does is, I think it's an awesome concept. The only thing it needs to also do is reward you for that. So one of the things about the fluff is in games like, even The Witcher is a perfect example. There's a lot of items that are not unique. It's just a replication of the previous thing that just has a slightly higher stat. And what I would hate is for you to go on this awesome hunt to waste, 30 minutes going, oh, it's behind this tree under the river that crosses with the blah. Look for the rock that's pointing south underneath this night sky at 2 a.m. Blah, blah, blah. This kind of, and you do all of that. And it's like, fuck, all right, it's like a pair of socks or something. Great. You know what I mean? Like if it has unique, cool things that you get rewarded for.
Well, that's exactly what Valhalla does.
Then it's perfect. It's awesome. Because I know Skyrim.
So it'll give you, there's specific treasure hunt things that will do that, where you have to map up, and this has been in Assassin's Creed games for a while, but you look at a treasure map, you have to map it to the environment to find it, and then it's a good piece of loot.
But then they give you good loot. Exactly, yeah.
But generally, the thing I was talking about is actually main quest stuff. So it's not so much a reward, it's more like you're progressing. The progression is the reward. So,
yeah, gotcha. Yeah. Because Skyrim did the. I
found. I think we've made this point.
Just a really quick one. Skyrim had little treasure maps that you could find, but they were useless because there was nothing ever cool or unique in any of them. So you just gave up. You didn't give a shit about them anymore, and that was a really cool part of the game in a game like that. So anyway, my number 3 pet peeve. My number 1 pet peeve is psychologists. So what I mean by that is the fact that the industry hires professionals, well-paid professionals, to figure out how to get you hooked onto games that ruin your life in a lot of instances, make you forget about the real world, make it become your main obsession. I'm talking about, games like Destiny, where it's very carefully crafted, where they hire actual people to understand human dynamics and thought and what gets people hooked on a particular thing. And then implementing those mechanics to basically keep you hooked on that one particular thing, as opposed to making a game because it's an awesome game. They want you to enjoy the experience. You know, you're free to go and wander off and play another game whenever you feel like, so to speak. This is the complete opposite. We've now reached an era where games are not necessarily always made for the fun of making the game. It's made... they're made to keep you hooked and suck
mate,
your time.
The image that I'm laughing because the image that you got chose for psychologist is like some sound.
So for anyone who's
yeah,
watching
that's
the
why.
actual, listening, the audio podcast, I'm just pulling together what I think are images that are representative of what we're all talking about. And South Park, I think, covered this whole thing insanely perfectly.
I have not seen that episode.
Oh, haven't you?
Nope.
They basically break apart mobile games and the loop that they have. And it's
Okay.
all about like getting the whales and like just fucking them over and just fucking them so hard and trying to get $10,000 out of them and stuff. It was with the Terrence and Phillip mobile game. You'd love this episode.
Okay, I will watch that episode. Yeah. So that's my number one absolute pet peeve. I think it's the dark side of the video gaming industry, where I don't even consider those things games at this point.
It's not even like mobile. I put it as like dark side of mobile, but then it's like actually beyond
Dark
that.
side of gaming.
Yeah, I just wanted to be more specific. All right, my three, and this is going to be really tricky because I'm trying to do two things at once. So my number three is the way that that games handle, and I haven't really given myself enough space here, the way that the games handle abusive players online. So I don't play that many multiplayer games, but probably the most out of the three of us, I guess. And like after a while, like stuff like Rocket League, I've just like turned off everything, like chat, voice, everything, because you just get like one dickhead who is just a prick. And like they'll literally jump on and say like kill yourself and all this other kind of insane shit. And it just puts me in a bad mood, man. It's like I don't need to jump on a game for like some idiot to try to take out my frustrations that they don't have sex with their wife or whatever, or they're a virgin and like, you know, they're coming at me
I'm
for
really
shit.
angry about this.
No, but like what I don't like is it's not them, because you always get idiots, right? It's that it's abuse systems, right? They're like crap in games. And it's like, I do think there is like always been a bro culture in gaming. And I've put in like 360 as the example because there is something really funny about those lobbies back in the day where you get like 12, 13-year-olds in Modern Warfare 2 and they're all like, you know, with their high-pitched voices trying to act like they're so tough they'll bash you or something. And they're talking about your mum. Sounds like someone else I know. And it's just like super immature, super lame, super uncreative. But like, honestly, like gaming should be inspired. Hey?
He thought I was frozen. I wasn't frozen.
No, I think he's pointing to you to say that you like you're the unoriginal one.
Change your signs from last time, Mike.
So yeah, what I was saying is that I think that gaming, and like especially with online games, they should take some of the insights that you can get from stuff like Airbnb and Uber, where the way you rate each other, your experience changes. Like, of course, I'm like a 5-star Uber passenger. So it actually, I don't know if you guys know this, but it actually affects what Ubers you can get, right? If you're low rating on Uber, you will only get low rating drivers. Like it actually like has that system. So you become an arsehole, you hang out with arseholes, right? And same way as some games do this like specifically where it's like cheaters, they'll put all cheaters in the same game and cheating against each other and they're all having a shit time, right? I think that like, you know, they could take that insight and actually go, okay, if you're an arsehole, you're not going to have a voice chat like ability. So you can't talk to the lobby. Like we're just going to start limiting the feature set that you have. Or like for me, I would actually be happy if I said, I only want to play with players who are 4.2 and above or 4.3 and above. And I just don't want to play with guys who like, you know, are assholes and just like absolute dickheads. Like when they're playing games, I don't need that shit.
I feel like I should have clarified my idea for this segment a little bit more. That these are pet peeves, because this is a bigger issue to me than a pet peeve.
Wow, it's like I don't know.
One of his
No, it's fine. I'm just like I'm thinking like minor, like these minor things, but they just annoy me.
Like, I hate psychologists.
Yeah, exactly.
And you seem like some asshole. I don't like the pause screen doesn't work right. All right, well, this one's I guess it's pretty big as well, but more like not as serious as abuse systems, but games that don't handle, and again, a lot of these are kind of like online games that don't handle players dropping out, dropping off, falling away, and stuff like that. It drives me nuts. Rocket League is probably the best example of this, like how to do it right. Splatoon 2 is probably the example of how to do it the worst. And there's a lot of stuff that I love about Splatoon 2, but, a lot of the systems are really bad. So, like, for instance, in Splatoon 2, if people drop out, they're gone. And you're playing 4v4, and there's been many instances where, like, pretty much in that game, if you lose one player and you're fairly evenly matched, 4v3 is just next to impossible in that game. And then it becomes 4v2. And to me, it's just like exactly like in Rocket League in the casual mode where you just backfill people with bots and, you think about these things. And I just think there's too many games that assume you're not going to get people disconnecting, and they handle it in just the absolute trash way. Like I've heard a lot of people talk about Mario Golf. And again, like I'm picking on Nintendo a bit, but they do have the worst online out of all the consoles and PC. With Mario Golf, the latest release, like if you get a few disconnects, it just blocks you from playing online. Like it just says you can't play online for 6 hours or something like that because your connection's a bit dodgy. And it happens to people even when they believe it's not their connection. Like they have no issue with any other game. They got LAN plugged in, all this other kind of stuff, and they still have issues, right? And I just feel like a lot of games, they build it and it's almost like they're playing only on their perfect connections in the office or something. And they never like experience it in the real world with playtesting. So yeah, I think like that's a real pet peeve for me.
I thought I saw Splatoon. I thought you were just going to talk specifically about Splatoon's matchmaking.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things, but that stuff doesn't bother me as much as just like because that happens in all like even if you fix the lobby system, it still has this issue where people drop off and like it becomes like you can't even quit it. It's like, oh great, I'll play for the next 5 minutes and lose. Like you kind of already lost from the start. And a lot of the times the disconnects happen right at the start as well. So, and then my number one is I am just like in a space where, when I was a kid, most games you could pause, right? Like Swinny, there weren't that many games that you couldn't pause as a kid, right? Like playing SNES and Nintendo, right? So that was a very common thing, right?
Maybe some of the ones were like meant to be arcade ports or something, but generally speaking, you could pause every game.
Yeah. And I don't know, I'm very different to you guys where like from a life perspective, just like sometimes I'll need to drop everything and just go do something really quickly, right? And I just freaking hate games where it's not structured in any way to be able to just go, okay, I'm just pausing this or just suspending it or just like even the like what do they call it on PlayStation 5, Mike? It's
quick resume.
No, it's not called quick resume. I feel like you just like look at it.
That take you straight back in. Or?
No, it's rest mode. Yeah, rest mode. To me, that just takes it's like too hard to get there so quickly. Like I just want to be able to press like a button and then just go, yeah, I want to put it in rest mode like straight away, right?
Yeah, but the thing with that is that you can't just have it. You need a check in place because people will press that by accident.
Yeah.
No. I'm saying like, like one thing to confirm it or whatever. You used to be able to shut down your PlayStation 4 super easy. Now it's like to do any of those options, it's really, it's like a lot of steps involved just to do something
like
simple.
One extra step and about a second worth of effort.
Yeah, but that's too much. That's like, because there's too much coordination to be able to do it. It's not like a reliable bang, 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 like a 3-button press. It's actually like you have to hold it to the right for a certain amount of time. And then,
but you're talking about.
you say that and you've got an Xbox picture where that is that quick to do it on Xbox.
Yeah.
You should have a PlayStation
also,
picture.
you're talking about pausing something because you can pause practically every single game. There's I would say it's an exception that you can't pause a game. And again,
it's not just pause.
That dead horse.
It's suspend. I want to be able to suspend games, and this is why I think.
But you couldn't suspend games back in any other generation. It's only really the new generations where you can suspend games. So
but that was
is your pet peeve about something that is just been introduced that isn't quite right yet, or what?
So I haven't finished what I said. So like normally in a conversation, I'll say some stuff and then I'll actually elaborate what I'm actually saying. So why I brought up when we were kids is like, I'd have to pause it and then leave it, have dinner, come back.
Yeah.
Right. And it was fucking nuts. It was stupid. Like, but it was a limitation. You couldn't do anything about it. It was just the way that the technology, they couldn't even really save properly back in the day. Like they'd have to give you codes to save, right?
It's annoying that electrons need to keep doing their thing to keep a state active.
I was about to say, does he have a way to like mute Mike now?
I do have a way, and I'm going to start implementing it.
Right.
So, fuck, I'm actually really annoyed. So, like these days, there's no reason why it should be like that, right? And this is one of the massive reasons why I like the Switch. That with the Switch, you just press the power button. It's one button. It's super reliable. There's never any like accidental times I've ever pressed the power button to pause it. And it just fits in with my life. It like just makes it so much easier. And it also means that all the developers have to make their games to support that as an idea, right? You can't release a game on the Switch without having the ability to suspend it like instantly. And I still think it's like one of the absolute things that differentiates the Switch from everything else for me. And it's interesting with the Steam Deck that they actually have thought really deeply about it. They've recently spoken about it to IGN. Just like that was one of the real huge areas they wanted to focus in on, and just being able to snap pause a game and then bring it back up. It's not like obviously way harder on the PC where it's not built to be like that. So they spent a lot of time to make that work. Cool. All right, let's move on to our final segment.
Oh, I thought we were going to wrap it up. That's all right.
Wrap up. What's
It's fine. Let's move on.
What are we wrapping up?
Oh, let's just talk. Whatever. So it's fine. We'll talk with post show. It's all good.
No. What are we talking about?
No.
Go back to the
We're
go back
going
to
to
the
our
view.
gaming resolutions. We're doing our gaming resolution check.
I didn't know what else we were going to say about that. What else were we going to say?
Like a
We're
quick
on the
roundup
next segment.
of
We're on the next segment.
All right, next